Good day, welcome to Bio 101, our first video in this series of many videos covering the topics in the CXC Biology syllabus and the CSEC Human and Social Biology syllabus. Today we'll be looking at living things, or to be more precise, the characteristics of living things. To be classified as a living thing, there are seven characteristics that any organism must possess. As a matter of fact, the word organism is another word that can be used in place of the term living thing. Now, these seven characteristics are as follows: 1. Movement. 2. Growth. 3. To get nutrition. 4. Respiration. 5. Reproduction. 6. Respond to stimuli. And finally, 7. Excrete waste. Now we're going to go through all of the following list, and we will be discussing the different things that come under each. Now, in discussing each of the following, we will make them more clearly notifiable by you. So we have living things, and then we have what I like to call inanimate objects. So I will grab this inanimate object, which is a book. Now on the list here, we still have our characteristics of living things. And you can tell me, this book, if I don't move this book, can it move? Does this book grow unless we add pages to it ourselves? Does this book actively tries to get nutrients in itself? Now, does this book respire? Does this book reproduce? Does it respond to stimuli? Does it excrete waste? Sadly, the answer to that and to all these questions is a big fat whopping no. So let's dig deeper into discussing these characteristics of living things. Now, starting with movement, and we all know what movement is. We might be confused because when we think of living things, the two biggest categories of living things are plants and animals. And of course, we will discuss the other types of living things like bacteria, fungi, protists. We will look at those other things as we move through the course. But this course mainly focuses on plants and animals. Now the question will be, do plants move? I mean, if you're thinking, okay, sir is saying that one of the seven characteristics that a living thing must possess is movement. But there are lots of plants and I don't see them moving. Now, interestingly, you have two types of movement. You have what you call whole movements, where the entire organism moves from one place to a next. Whole movements, another term for whole movements, locomotion. So locomotion is the whole body movement from one place to another. But interestingly, you have another type of movement called growth movement. Growth movement. So a change in physical size is what growth is. But if you were here and you grew to this place, you actually moved from here to there. So part movements or growth movements is another type of movement that we must consider. Also, if you check it, a lot of plants exhibit types of movements. Now I'll show some pictures in the video here if I ever learn how to do it. Now the pitcher plant, for example, it has this bell and it has some special scent that attracts the insects. And as they go down into the hole, it closes and then it digests the insects. That's a movement. In Jamaica, I'm going to the colloquial language now, we have a plant called the shame maca. Shame maca. It's a thorny plant. I will link it in there, probably a clip to show you what happens. But when you touch it, it closes. The sunflowers, the head of the sunflower actually moves with the sun throughout the entire day. The head moves and follows the sun. Alright? What else? In any old country and western movies that you watch, you will always see something that is called a broomweed or tumbleweed. A thing look like some dried stems tangled together, and the wind just blows it across the road. I'll put a clip here. No, that's actually a living plant, and because it's adapted to living in the desert conditions, the wind blows it from one place to the next in search for water. It's a living plant. So plants do move, but mostly animals move, and they move for various reasons. And their body movements, their whole body movements are normally called locomotion. So we can talk about locomotion some more. And interestingly, some of the characteristics help to support the other characteristics. For animals move in order to find food. Nutrition is another thing on this list, and we'll talk about it some more. Animals move in order to grow. It's on the list. Animals move in order to find a mate for reproduction, which is also on the list. So each part of the list tends to support the other characteristics on this list. So we will end with movement now, and we will go down. And before we end with movement, I must say too that we have to move as animals, because we are animals. Other animals too must move in order to respond to stimuli, which we'll get into some more later. Alright, great. We move now to growth. And we already, earlier in this video, discussed growth. Now, growth is a change in physical size. We're not going to spend a lot of time on that. We all know what growing is, So all living organisms grow. They don't stay the same size forever. I mean, the cycle of life predates and shows that most of the times the organism comes into existence small and grows into what it ought to be. The butterfly started out as a caterpillar and metamorphed into a big, nice butterfly with wings. As large as an elephant it was born small and grew into this magnificent large creature. As fierce as a lion is, it was first a cub and it grew into this majestic beast. As large as a mustard tree is, the seed was almost microscopic. Any tree you can think of, most times it come from a seed, if not a sucker, but a lot of them come from seeds, and the seeds are normally very small. Grows into a huge tree. So, growth is important, because it also helps with less competition for some of the other things here. Less competition for places to move, less competition for finding nutrients, less competition for respiration, to find the raw materials for respiration, less competition for reproduction, and you name it. Because the smaller one does not need so much nutrients, it does not need so much space, it don't need so much, it is less competition between the larger organisms and the smaller ones. If everything started out large, they would be at each other trying to compete for the resources in the environment. So we move down to nutrition. Yes, nutrition. Now, nutrition speaks to getting nutrients into the organism. What are nutrients? Man, I feel like we're moving so wonderfully through the syllabus, because we'll be looking at nutrition as an entire topic to itself. We'll be looking at movement too as an entire topic to itself when we begin to look at the skeletal system and all of that. But nutrition. Nutrients must get into the organism for the organism to survive. Now, nutrients are chemical substances found in food. Alright? Now, these useful chemical substances need to get into the organism for various reasons, which we will discuss when we are further looking at nutrition. But every living thing must get nutrients because the nutrients are needed for various reasons for the survival of the organism. Interestingly, we will differentiate at this very moment that plants and animals tend to get nutrients in different ways. Thank God, or whosoever you serve. I don't know your views on creation or whatnot. I'm not trying to get anybody riled up. I'm just trying to teach this syllabus. But we are thankful for plants because plants are one of the only set of organisms that can make their own food utilizing the sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide. Yes, they utilize these raw materials in specific conditions and they make food, which is glucose, and they also make oxygen in the process that we need. So plants make their own food in a process that is called autotrophic nutrition by the process of photosynthesis. We're so thankful for that because that then becomes the food that every other organism needs to feed on to survive. Now notice I didn't say feeding. A lot of teachers will list feeding as a characteristic of living things. I do not like to do that because plants do not feed. Feeding is basically the process by which you acquire nutrients by eating. Plants don't eat. They make their own food and they utilize this food. Feeding is something that is actively going out and getting the thing. Plants don't do that. They make their own food. They manufacture food, which in turn is used by every other organism, either directly by feeding on the plant, such as herbivores or even omnivores, or by getting it indirectly by feeding on some other animal that first ate plants. So if you eat some chicken, and the chicken was used to grow by feeding it with corn or soybeans. The corn or the soybean is a plant. You're eating the plant indirectly by eating the chicken because the chicken ate the plant. So on and so forth. You get it? So feeding, animals feed in a way that we call heterotrophic nutrition, while plants make their food by autotrophic nutrition in the process of photosynthesis. We're not going to labor on this now because each of these will come up in their own individual topics that we'll be sure to touch. If you like and subscribe and hit that notification bell, that as soon as the new videos come out, you will get them. Please free to use the comment section to ask your questions, or to highlight the type of videos that you will need, although we are trying as best as possible to follow the syllabus. So if you will be patient and you're a subscriber, then I am sure you will get the content that you need most urgently. The more you subscribe, the more you watch, the more you like, the more videos keep coming your way. Moving down the list to respiration. Oh Lord. I do not know why, but a lot of my colleagues make the mistake of saying breathing instead of respiration. Now, I will tell you that breathing and respiration are totally different phenomena. Respiration is the process by which energy is released from the nutrients, from the food that you eat. Those nutrients, you release energy from them to get energy to do work or to do whatever you're doing. Yeah? That now is respiration, releasing energy from the food. And Every organism, both plants and animals, need energy, so they need to respire. Breathing, however, is the process of getting in oxygen rich air and letting out air rich in carbon dioxide. I'll get into that later, just for a layman's definition. Plants don't breathe, so it could not be a characteristic of living things. Respiration is the right one, not breathing. Do not make that mistake. Thank you. Then after respiration, now next on our list we have reproduction. Reproduction is the process by which new individuals are made, and these new individuals are either similar or identical to the parent or parents. You will understand that gibberish later. I'm trying to be very specific, because when we get to reproduction, you will learn that there are two types of reproduction: sexual and asexual. So let us then be patient until we get to the topic reproduction. But reproduction is making new individuals of the same species that are viable. You may not understand that at this very moment. You just need to know to list the characteristics: movement, growth, nutrition, respiration, reproduction. And as we get to these individual topics on the syllabus, we will clarify and expound. Next, we go to respond to stimulus. Stimulus is the singular form of the word stimuli. So you may hear them saying respond to stimuli. Now, a stimulus is any change in an organism's environment is a stimulus. Now, organism must respond and react to changes or they won't survive. If you are in a room and it gets freezingly cold and you don't do anything about it, you may freeze to death. The body's natural response is to start shivering to create heat and all of that, but even that may not be enough. One of your response may be to get up and get out of that room. Just to give an example, if somebody hurls something at your head and you don't move your head out of the way because you see but you're not responding, you may get a serious injury. Understand? So responding to the changes in the environment. A plant, whenever I'm doing biology, I like to give examples of both plants and animals. So for example, a plant that is in a sunny day, if it does not react to that environment, it will soon wilt, bow over and die. Now in response to a windy day or a sunny day, the plants may choose to close their stomata, which are tiny holes under the leaves. We're going to get to these things as we get to transpiration and all these topics. Close the stomata to let out less water. Some plants respond by curling their leaves to reduce the surface air that sunlight touching. But you have to react to the stimuli in your environment if you are going to survive. Finally on the list, and another touchy one, excrete. To excrete is to get rid of metabolic waste. Now, metabolic waste is waste that has been created by the body. Alright? So it's not just to get rid of waste. If you say to get rid of waste and you leave it like that, you are wrong. Because waste in general, how do I put this? Waste in general can be something that the body didn't create, that you took in and you let it back out. For example, there is about 78 to 79% of nitrogen in the air that you take in. When you let it out, it has the same 79 or so percent nitrogen. It's waste, but is it metabolic waste? No, because you took it in and you let it out in the same condition. So that's getting rid of waste. That is actually egestion. Do not mix up excretion with egestion. Egestion is just getting rid of waste. Excretion is getting rid of metabolic waste. Waste that was created by the organism. So, for example, when we breathe out, the air that we breathe out having more carbon dioxide than the air that we took in. We took in 0.04% carbon dioxide. However, we let out 4% carbon dioxide because some was made by the body and you need to get rid of it because it's poisonous. That's metabolic waste. And we will get more into discussing metabolic waste when we begin to look at excretion, the skin, the kidneys, the lungs, and we'll get into all of that. But do not mix up excretion by just thinking it's getting rid of waste. It's way more than that, and we must get into the technical jargons. Now, that is it for your first topic of characteristics of living things. Stay tuned for the next video, which will be grouping things. Thank you, and thank